It is Monday, October 9th, 2017. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And I gotta tell you, I've been terribly busy. Too busy to even get in any jiu-jitsu today. Although I think I made it clear earlier on, I don't think I'm going to be doing jiu-jitsu on Mondays. Unless maybe sometime in the future I should go to the 6 a.m. class. But other than that, the only class that I'm really aware of today is that's within my time span anyway, is jiu-jitsu too, and that's just a little bit deep for me. I mean, they're cool, they're really accommodating and whatnot, but I always feel like I'm taking away from somebody's experience if I'm too far beneath their capability, you know? It's like if they have to do situational sparring with me and they can finish me in like 10 seconds, no questions asked, and they've got to dick around with me for 2 or 3 minutes, you know, I'm not really contributing anything to their experience, or at least not very much. I mean, I'm sure they might get surprised by something I do once, but for the most part, it's like, yeah, I remember doing this stuff. This is when I was a white belt. I dealt with things like this too, and it's not the same experience for them. You know, they're not being threatened by somebody who is more skilled than they are, you know, and taking them to extremes they weren't used to before, you know. They didn't know how to deal with it or whatever. No, I'm just showing them replays. And so yeah, I just noticed that I was getting hurt a lot more during the Monday classes, and I may yet go back, because I also feel like I was making probably the most progress, and I've been getting a lot of encouraging feedback from my companions in jiu-jitsu, and so it's making me feel like I am really starting to get somewhere in it, even though damn near everybody there could kick my ass without any doubt. But, you know, I'm realistic about it. You know, some people, they roll with people that are way more skilled than they are, and because the person doesn't go for every single submission they possibly can, the person they're rolling with gets like this false sense of security, you know? And I'm sure it's entertaining for some people to kind of exploit that naivete. You know, they let him go a couple times, maybe even get submitted by them once, you know, just to egg them on, make them feel like they're, you know, oh man, you're tough, yeah, you're getting real good at this, and then just one time on open mat, just destroy them, just like be merciless about it. It's like, oh hey tough guy, how you doing now? I mean, sometimes I feel like I've gone through that at least once, but for the most part, I've tried to keep my mentality set that I'm just an egg here. You know, there are 17-year-olds that train here that could probably dismember me without an implement, and you know, as scary as that may seem, I want to be just like them. So anyway, enough of the jiu-jitsu business. We've noticed a significant drop-off as of late with regard to the price of Verge. And some of you guys out there might be experiencing a little additional, I don't know how to put it, panic right now. But I gotta tell you, man, it's nothing to worry about. This is normal, okay? If you want to get an idea of why, you just look back at the chart and you see that previous big dip. Yeah, that's what happened in August when they were doing that. Well, actually, no, the big dip might have been before that. I want to say that the big dip happened in the run up to Bitcoin Cash's fork. But it seemed to me like there was a dip, and then it came back up, and then Bitcoin Cash happened, and it dipped back down, and then it came back up. So, it's the coin goes up, the coin goes down. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no underlying fucking message of why it's happening. It's just that it happens, and you just got to get used to that. I know it sounds kind of unsettling, but it's the truth of crypto, And if you spend enough time in this space, that's what you're going to find out. That there is no safety. There's just temporary respite. And you got to be kind of on it, Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down some music. And I like to start off with A's or B's, but I'm feeling the necessity to go a little deeper today. And fuck it. The threat is real. Megadeth off Dystopia. First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Tool with Vicarious. Oy. Sorry about that. I kind of flooded y'all with music there, but it's got to happen sometimes. It's got to happen, because we're not entirely in the right place of mind, we got to get a little high. Anyway, speaking of the garden. The garden is looking so fantastic. Every time I look at it, I see these nice colas. Every once in a while I find a little spot of mold. Gotta pluck it and clean it up as best as you can and dry it out. As a matter of fact, I've been doing that for probably about a week and a half. I saw my first bit of mold I would say close to a week ago. And it's been kind of a daily thing, and I'm sure it happens primarily at night where, things get frozen, things burst, and then in the morning they get moldy. But anyway, so it's been kind of a uphill battle getting here, but it's turning out exactly as I'd really hoped. I mean, there are a few exceptions to that. I wanted to have things kind of strapped down and ready to go in like May. And in all honesty, I didn't get to where I wanted to get with the build until somewhere in the middle of last month. So that's 4 months off. I mean, but really the rain just threw me off. I had my schedule set that I was going to get out there and I was going to do my thing in May, or April rather, and the rain just wouldn't let me. I get out there and it wouldn't be raining, and I'd start digging, and then it would start raining, and next thing I know, I'm up to my ankles in the sludge that sticks to your feet. I mean, it's not quite the... It's about the consistency of shit, except it's heavier and it's stickier, and it's clay, but it sticks to you. Like there's just enough moisture in it to trap it together, but it's more or less just like rock. So like you lift your foot up and then you step back down, and when you step back down, you end up picking up more of it because it gets compressed into the bottom of your shoe, and then you lift your foot up again, you put it down again, you pick up even more of it because now it compresses with the stuff that was below. It was just terrible, and so it was kind of an untenable situation trying to dig out there when it would get too wet like that. And I thought I was going to get ahead of the game with a rototiller. And that worked when it wasn't raining. But it didn't get any better when it was raining. It was just like, it was trying to run a goddamn rototiller through fudge. I mean, literally, it was like fudge. And, of course, that was only for, like, the first layer. I didn't figure this out until later, but if you got down more than 3 or 4 inches, then the ground wasn't as saturated, and you could actually work in it, but you had to continually be working. You couldn't stop for any duration of time because the water would gather on the surface, and then you'd be digging in mud again. Not fun at all. But I'll tell you what, the whole experience made me want to buy a rototiller, because I love that thing now. You know, I mean, I flattened an area that was basically kind of like a finger hill kind of thing. It's just a hump that brought the backyard an additional like 2 or 3 feet up on this one spot, and I needed to cut it flat. And most of the time I was doing it with like shovels and picks and shit like that. It's like back-breaking work. And it was funny, I was moving the dirt out to one other area that was a dip in the backyard. And so I managed to fill in the backyard in the dip spots to a pretty good degree, but it's all clay, so nothing grows in it. It's actually kind of funny. The weeds are only now starting to crawl up through the surface of it, and I'm sure it's just, you know, the fucking clay is such that the pH is such that the plants just can't grow in the shit. But that'll change. And speaking of ground becoming fertile over time, I've always said that I thought that Ripple was more or less the bank's cryptocurrency. You know, that when I read I'm pretty sure it was their white paper or like their statement of function or something, but I'm almost 100% certain it was sourced from Ripple, and it was a description paper of what they do. So it was most likely a white paper. I don't know that I've ever looked for it again. But anyway, when I was reading it, it was during the first really big alt boom. You know, Ripple happened to... I mean, there are people that claim that it's older than Bitcoin. The design might be older than Bitcoin. I don't know. It's not based on the same system that Bitcoin is. It's similar, you know, in that it's digital transactions, and you do need miners and shit. But I'm not 100% certain. But I think for Ripple, you need some sort of permit or something or other. I'm not sure. I would have to investigate that further. But anyway, when I read the white paper for it, and I saw the description of digital IOUs and the description of the function of Ripple, how you could deposit $10 and then withdraw $10 worth of Bitcoin or some shit like that. It was really convoluted, and you'd be issued like IOUs at the time. It was really interesting, okay? But I saw some glitches in the idea of what I was seeing. I thought the increased transfer rate was cool and all, but after a while I started thinking while I was reading it, I'm like, you know, this operates more or less like banks, because it functions with IOUs. There's a possibility of going with fractional reserves and issuing tokens as real funds. You know, that they issue you an IOU for $10 or $10 in Federal Reserve notes, not $10 of Bitcoin or whatever, and that the monetary systems out there would be such that they would take these coins as equivalent value to the association, you know. So the IOU would... So basically it would become a Federal Reserve note, except digital. And I'm like, this thing was made for banks. So it's no surprise to me. There's this little article, and I guess this one is actually on Ripple.com. Federal Reserve Task Force. Ripple improves speed and transparency of global payments. Not really, but okay. And this was authored July 21st, 2017. Ryan Zagone. Or Zagoni, or I don't know. But I'm going to go from the name. Yes, penis. Today, after 2 years of work, the Federal Reserve released its Payment Task Force Action Plan for bringing faster payments to the United States, highlighting Ripple's ability to underpin the next generation of cross-border payments. Set up in 2015 after the Fed recognized the need to spur improvements in payments, the task force brought together a diverse group of 320 stakeholders, including banks, regulators, end users, and technology companies, to create a roadmap for modernizing the U.S. payments infrastructure. Ripple played a leadership role in establishing this future vision for payments. Early in the process, I was elected to serve on the steering committee to represent tech companies and provide expertise on emerging technology and blockchain. One of the task force's first achievements was to establish a set of effective criteria for faster payments. That sounds kind of redundant, I think. This served as a long-term target for new solutions, defining the capabilities needed to meet the market demands of 2020 and beyond. This framework includes 36 criteria grouped into 6 categories: speed, efficiency, safety, and security, legal, governance, and ubiquity. With over 100 detailed benchmarks for each. Wow, that's a lot of benchmarks. True to being a future vision, no existing solution meets all of the criteria. I would have to, you know what, we're going to have to open a tab for that one. Next, the task force requested proposals for ways to fulfill the criteria, each of which being assessed by McKinsey. Framework calls for improved cross-border infrastructure. A distinguishing factor of the roadmap is a call for substantially improved cross-border payments. Currently, sending money abroad from the U.S. takes 2 to 4 days, with little transparency into cost, status, and delivery time. These pain points are a major barrier to economic growth, limiting companies that could otherwise benefit from importing materials or selling their goods overseas. These realities have long plagued remittances and consumer services. Ripple stands out for speed and transparency of payments. The task force received 22 proposals, 16 of which completed the process, including Ripple. Ripple put forth the Interledger-based solution that enables improved messaging and tracking for real-time payments, standing out as the only proposal focused on solving today's friction with cross-border payments. The McKinsey assessment gave high marks to Ripple, noting Ripple enables FIs the ability to cross-border payments faster than the 2 to 4 days common today. The solution bolsters the certainty of the cross-border payment experience by providing end-to-end transaction visibility to banks, as well as settlement confirmation. Ripple enables more transparency in the total cost of a payment to the payee prior to authorization if participating banks are willing to provide this transparency. if being flexible enough to be integrated directly into FIs, financial institutions, payment hub, or integrated into a third-party provider's platform to which financial institutions are already connected shows the solution is well designed for different use cases across a range of financial institutions in the United States. What's next? Interoperability and liquidity. The report released today defines 10 action items to move the market forward. These include a deeper focus on emerging technology, a work stream on cross-border payments, and the formation of a governance group to support interoperability. Ripple will continue to play an active part in these efforts. On the topic of interoperability, Ripple supports the task force belief in a multi-provider market, as evidenced by the Interledger Protocol, which is designed to provide technical interoperability across networks and providers. In fact, a recent Fed report noted that ILP could spur further innovation and adoption of new solutions. It was also a key feature in the Bank of England's most successful proof of concept, using Ripple to enable real-time cross-border payments. Why didn't they try that with Bitcoin? Maybe that was too transparent for them, huh? Within the emerging technology and cross-border work streams announced, Ripple plans to focus on how the use of digital assets like XRP can enable a new paradigm of liquidity and capital efficiency. This workstream provides the perfect venue to educate the market and serve as a catalyst for broader adoption of digital assets. Building on the momentum. Since submitting the proposal in May of 2016, Ripple announced the launch of a bank advisory board, the Global Payments Steering Group, to help define rules and formalize standards for payment activity across Ripple's network. Additionally, Ripple now has 75 customers, including Santander, BBVA, Standard Chartered, and Japan's SBI Remit, which has recently partnered with Siam Commercial Bank and Ripple to make it faster and easier for the 45,000 Thai nationals living in Japan to send money home. It has been a tremendous honor to participate in the task force and serve on the steering committee. Ripple would like to extend a sincere thanks to the Federal Reserve for supporting this effort and the task force for its commitment and helpful input on our proposal. We are eager to see the future of payments come to life. I'm sure you are. Ripple. Just gonna close that tab right there. Yeah. Ripple and the Federal Reserve. I think that was kind of always in the mix. I wouldn't doubt that at its root, if you dug deep enough, you would find that Ripple itself was either funded by or initiated by a group of banks in response to Bitcoin. But that's just my little theory. I could be wrong. They could just be that attractive to banks in the way that they can function, in the way that they do function. And, hey, that's cool. We all should have a cryptocurrency that serves our interests, and we should be free to use that one. And if banks really like Ripple, the Federal Reserve at its root is a private bank, much to the chagrin of a lot of people, myself included. Anyway, because of that, they have their own interests to see to. And the fact that they're looking at any cryptocurrency in general is pretty cool. But I've always thought that Ripple would be the catalyst for basically the way that the Federal Reserve and other entities would include cryptocurrencies in the global economic collapse. You know, they thought that they were going to be able to do like global fiat collapses all at once, and that they would be able to do them internationally and all at once, and that there wouldn't be any way to recover from it. You know, they would just game the system from within the SWIFT or whatever, and fuck everybody out of the value of their currency overnight, right? Well, then Bitcoin came along, and it happens to track fiat inflation really, really well. And it also provides some additional tools for arbitrage between fiat currencies too. So that's another thing to consider. But this whole idea of association with remittances, I mean, come on now. Bitcoin is a global currency. It's not specific to Ripple. It's not specific to Bitcoin. Any cryptocurrency that has nodes in more than one fucking country is an international currency. And remittances can be done between people that don't even have any nodes within that country. They just gotta have the fucking wallet and the software and the money. And they can send it to anybody else that has money. But anyway, back to Ripple. I put a hashtag out there, and you can look it up anytime you want. It's on Twitter, to my knowledge. I think it's still out there. GRBufu. Hashtag GRBufu. Just look it up sometime. Stands for the Great Ripple Buttfuck. And what I think it is that we're going to transition more and more of the global economy into cryptocurrencies and onto quote-unquote blockchains, right? And that through interactions with banks, now it's looking as far up as the central banks, they will be taking units that represent a different value than what they're telling you, right? And giving those to you instead of what you are asking for. So, you know, in the case of, say, Bitcoin, you know, they would give you Bitcoin 2x or S2x, you know, fucking segregated witness 2x for regular Bitcoin. Or in the case of, you know, it's happening in Bitcoin right now where because of the fact they run a lot of the nodes, the segregated witness people have been bouncing regular Bitcoin transactions and just trying to occupy the blocks with nothing but the segregated witness transactions. And so far they've only got like 7%, but they've been blocking regular Bitcoin transactions from being repropagated from their nodes, right? And so in that same way, they're trying to get you to use segregated witness. Because if you use segregated witness, oh, hey, you know, it just goes through really wonderful, right? If you're using a segregated witness wallet and segregated witness wallet address, oh, hey, your shit goes through really wonderful and quick because segregated witness people run the vast majority of the nodes. It's not actually an expression of the majority of people that are using Bitcoin. And so those of us who aren't using a segregated witness wallet address experience a lot of network congestion because only about 3% of the nodes out there actually reconvey our transactions. And so all of the transactive load is going through those. And so that's, you know, I don't know, that's neither here nor there, but it's the same thing happening, that you're being forced to take SegWit coin as Bitcoin this way. Or they're trying to force you to take SegWit coin as Bitcoin. You see what's going on there? You're not getting Bitcoin when you're using a segregated witness wallet. You're getting SegWit coin. And I think that's that is a conceptual jump a little bit too far for some people. But, they call SegWit coin Bitcoin, but it's not really Bitcoin. It's SegWit coin. And this whole SegWit 2x bullshit, I think it's just that. It's just bullshit. It's all SegWit 2x. SegWit 2x is, SegWit coin. What would really make me happy is if, they got up to the 2x date, and rather than supporting SegWit 2x, they just continue to signal intent to support, not actual support, and that the miners just keep doing regular old Bitcoin. Or at least the majority of them keep doing regular old Bitcoin, while the little peripheries are crumbling apart because they can't get enough of the transactive value going through their nodes and into their wallets and their addresses to throw the balance off. And I don't know, we might see some other things happen where exchanges are ganked and the coins are spent into SegWit. That could be a possibility. But the Great Ripple buttfuck is about cycling zero value coins in place of real value coins, and then a real collapse of those zero value coins, like SegWit coins, and basically the global economy with it. Because by the time that it actually plays out, these transactions will be so deep in the blockchains of all the cryptocurrencies they've been happening on that they'll all be contaminated with it. You'll have to do things like rollbacks. Well, fuck, are you going to roll back the global economy? When are you going to roll it back to? How the fuck are you going to sort all that bullshit out? You'd be in the same situation you're in now. Like if every nation out there, their treasuries call up all the places that they're supposedly holding gold at and say, we want our gold right now. We want you to put it on trucks. We want you to put it on trains. We want you to put it on planes and put it on boats and get it to us now. If that happened, the entire global economy would collapse probably within hours after that. Because everybody would find out really quick that there really isn't all that much gold. I mean, there's been some significant accumulation supposedly happening in China and Russia and a few other places, but even then, the gold that's being brought in isn't going to match the paper demand. Like the representative notes out there, I want to say it's like 250x, not percent, 250x promises per ounce above ground. And so you want to try to call in all those notes at one time. Like I said, you'll collapse the global economy because everybody who thought they had gold doesn't really have gold. They just got gold certificates that say they have the right to get gold. Not the real deal. And so the same thing would happen if everybody's out there circulating SegWit coins as Bitcoins, and then we find out, oh, hey, SegWit coin is bullshit. There's no real proof of work behind it. There's no miners behind it. What the fuck do you think's going to happen? In the background, there's probably going to be miners running the same old chain, same old protocol in the background, and everybody will have been kind of shifted away from them and onto the old SegWit coin that's being pumped by the banks. Because you'll notice that all of this talk by banks involving themselves in cryptocurrencies happened after what? It happened after the supposed introduction of SegWit coin to Bitcoin. And I was calling this before BIP's date and all that other bullshit. Before all that shit happened, I said this is a coup. This isn't consensus. This isn't according to Satoshi's vision. This is a coup. And it's already happened in several other cryptocurrencies. It happened in Litecoin too. I'd be willing to bet you, if you go back and you talk to all your friends that were mining Litecoin, they'll tell you the same fucking thing. That one day, their regular fucking regular Litecoin transactions just stopped working, and they had to upgrade to the SegWit capable wallet. And everybody had to upgrade their fucking their miners up to the SegWit because, you know, the nodes wouldn't rebroadcast the transactions unless they were SegWit transactions. Because they did the same thing on Gridcoin. They just one day called all the regular transactions spam. They just said, "Hey, you guys are just fuckos, and we're not going to take your spam. You're spamming the network." They weren't really spamming the network. They were trying to broadcast and perform regular transactions on that coin, and a significant number of the nodes just said, "Fuck you! We're not gonna broadcast your transactions one day." You know, and it was probably easier to do on small coins like that. But Litecoin, that one actually took months, but they did the same thing. And they're doing the same thing in Bitcoin. They don't talk about it on Cointelegraph or any of those others. They don't talk about the dynamic between the miners and the nodes and exactly what actually changes with the protocol flags that each supports. No, they don't tell you any about that. They don't want you to think about that. They want you to think, oh, you're displacing the banks. You're disrupting. You're doing nothing of the sort. While they're jerking you off up front, they're stuffing it in your ass. Get it through your head, kid. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down a little bit of music. It's been a while. And I'm feeling some textures coming on. And we're Genesis here on Coin Metal. And that was Static X with This Is Not. And it's funny. I did an interview not too long ago with Mr. John McAfee. And I gotta say, other than talking to Mr. Burgedev, it was certainly the height of my doing this show. I've been wanting to talk to the gentleman for a very long time. But it seems like a lot of other people in media watch this show, or listen to this show rather, because all of a sudden Mr. McAfee is everywhere, and I like that, because I mean the man is a visionary, you know, and I'm sure the moment that he really understood what Bitcoin was all about, that, you know, the light bulbs just like would appear and blow up in his mind. You know, just kept popping up. You know, they would light up and blow up. And so, you know, it just seemed normal that he would kind of he would see the utility of it. I felt that when I was listening to the man while he was going for the presidency, I could hear somebody who actually lives in the 21st century, you know, who actually has 21st century concerns and isn't trying to convince the rest of the world that he still lives in the 1950s, which I gotta say the rest of the presidential candidates were doing an excellent job of. But anyway, I digress. So I got this article here on RT.com, and this is some of the it's something of what I was talking about earlier, but I think that fundamentally the technology of Bitcoin has in it the promise to live like we did in 2015, where transactions went relatively smoothly and we were able to do transactions all over the planet, and far more of the United States people in the United States were interested in mining. And so we represented a little bit more of the clout. You know, there's all this China fear-mongering when it comes to that. And when people do that, I just want to point at them and say, it's your fault. Yeah, that's right. It's all your fault. See, if you would write out the suck, okay, and just take the fact that, so what, you're not earning parity right this moment, right? You're putting in more in electricity and more in hardware than you're actually getting out right now. But here's the thing. For every miner that you have on the network, that's one additional chance that you will get the payout. That's one additional chance that the pool that you're on will get the payout. Will complete the block first. That's additional competition. And that doesn't, it's not valueless just because you don't get the coin. You know, it's like, I would kind of put it akin to like a bass fishing tournament. Winning the bass fishing tournament doesn't make the effort that everybody else put into the bass fishing tournament valueless. It's like when you look at some of the big money tournaments, and I mean there are tournaments with payouts of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, boats, fishing gear, sponsorships. Okay, and before you even get to there, you have sponsorships. Okay, to be one of those guys that's even competing in that tournament, you have to have competed in other tournaments. And people have to have looked at your performance at those tournaments and said, this guy's worth throwing a buck or two at. You know, and they'll hook you up with the boat and they'll hook you up with the gear, but their stickers are all over that stuff, and you're giving them exposure whether or not you win the tournament. And so you're generating value for the companies involved in throwing the tournament and benefiting from the tournament simply by your participation. And it's similar to that in Bitcoin. You know, it doesn't matter that you aren't getting the payout. When people look at the amount of hashing power that's being dedicated to it, they use that as at least one factor in their determining how to evaluate it, because it's that hard for everybody to get. You know, these temporary aberrations where the Chinese will come out with a new fucking chip and they'll be mining really hard with it. Big fucking whoop-de-doo. If you get into it, okay, and enough Americans get into it, there will develop within the United States additional capacity to produce things like GPU dies for, you know, GPUs. And so we will have things like Intel, or companies like Intel saying, hey, there's all this demand for GPUs and nobody's fucking addressing it here in the United States. We have production capacity here in the United States. Which area is best as far as taxation and property and all that other bullshit? Let's go ahead and retool that fab unit and get it set up to be producing some next-gen GPUs, or, you know, let's give the Chinese ASIC market a fucking run for their money and go to the least taxed municipality that we can go to in the United States that we already have property on. You know, maybe put an arm on the local legislature. let them know what's up as far as what we intend to do and what kind of benefit we could bring to their locality or their state, and get the ball rolling. And I'm sure this is happening somewhere right now, that there's ink drying on paper for deals to do this right now. Because if there isn't, we in the United States are fucked. Because there's not going to be enough of that shit coming to us from other places. We are not going to keep up with them. The Chinese themselves are going to be sucking up all the GPUs in China. They're not going to be coming over to the United States to be branded as Asus and all that other bullshit. The fucking Chinese are going to say, look, dude, you know, we really like your whole distribution channel business and all that, but this is 2 months of lag time where these GPUs aren't mining cryptocurrency for us, and so we're not going to do that anymore. You know, big whoop-de-doo, it gives us some tax breaks on some of our other companies. We're just not going to do it, because the amount of money that saves us or gives us, and the amount of access and influence that gives us, it's not enough. It's not worth enough to us to cut ourselves that far out of the mining market. We need that GPU power here. We need that hashing power here in China, because we have people that have money, that can afford to buy the GPUs, that want the GPUs, that will make us more prosperous than you. And so we're just going to keep them to ourselves. That's what's going to happen here in the United States. We're going to see it everywhere else where we're sourcing our chipsets outside of the United States. And there's going to be a revision, okay, of how we regulate things like the manufacture of chips, silicon chips, here in the United States. Because there's going to be significant economic drivers to do so. Because our current system, the regulatory burden is too significant as is, and keeps too many people out. And we can't afford to play like that anymore. We can't afford to be restrained by IP laws and all that other bullshit and be dealing with monopoly creating regulations. And the ones that we have do exactly that. They make it to where only those that can currently pay for regulatory relief can bother to participate, you know, or can stay compliant, can afford to participate, or get sponsored by somebody who can afford the regulatory burden. And that comes with its caveats, of course. You know, it comes with its conditions. Nobody gives you a big old chunk of money with no expectations. You know, that there's the crowdfunding thing and the ICO thing. And you can do that. And to some extent it's viable. But now when you start talking about corporate interest and corporate sponsorship, that comes with interests that you should be trying to keep to yourself. And that's why I say chasing adoption leads to corruption. Because a lot of times the conditions that you have to agree to get the money are in the long term not in your best interest. So, but anyway, I got this article here. It's on RT. World governments fear Bitcoin because they can't tax it. And this is by John McAfee. Cryptocurrencies have captured the attention of investors and world governments alike, especially given Bitcoin's meteoric rise over the past 12 months. Cybersecurity expert John McAfee believes they may encompass the sum of all fears for governments the world over. The blockchain technology that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are built on helps to solve the problems that plague traditional banking by cutting out the middleman, thus reducing fees for consumers while decentralizing and securing transactions. With no centralized exchange to control or influence, national authorities around the world will find it increasingly difficult to determine a given citizen's income and thus their income tax owed, undermining a critical source of the government revenue, according to technology pioneer and head of MGT Capital Investments, John McAfee. And I'm not going to repeat this. I'll eat my own dick on national TV if Bitcoin doesn't surpass $500,000 in 3 years. Yeah. You know what? My response to him when he posted that, and it got a lot of likes, was that I don't think that the Federal Reserve note is actually going to be considered a monetary unit in 3 years. So the whole it being evaluated as $500,000 in 3 years, it's kind of meaningless. But anyway, continuing on. Quote, "Our income taxes are the greatest source of revenue, but if everyone's using Bitcoin, the government doesn't know what your income is. They can't tax it. And if you choose to say, I didn't have anything, they cannot prove otherwise," McAfee said. Quote, "It will eventually frighten every nation state, but it doesn't matter what they do. There's no way you can create a law or to legislate something that will stop Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency because technically you cannot." The fear is palpable in the market, both as China and South Korea have mulled clamping down on the proliferation of cryptocurrencies in recent months. Meanwhile, Japan is poised to fully embrace the blockchain market by establishing its own digital currency. The often outspoken and eccentric McAfee did highlight the need for some regulation, however, preaching caution over the latest trend of government-sponsored initial coin offerings. Absolute scam, Wikipedia founder warns investors from participating in selling token-based digital currencies, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's interesting. We might actually check that out. Quote, "China is right about one thing. The ICOs, the initial coin offerings, there are lots of scams. Lots of people who are fraudulently taking money from other people. So that's got to stop. But I don't think governments can stop it. We as users and the Bitcoin community have to be self-regulated," McAfee said. Quote, "The fear is in the fear of governments and central banks, like JP Morgan, which is America's largest bank," he said. The CEO is so concerned that he acted like a madman and called Bitcoin a fraud, said someone is going to get killed eventually, and it's like, what are you talking about? It's nonsense. And that was, for context, JP Morgan rival Goldman Sachs have flirted with the idea of establishing a cryptocurrency trading operation in recently, blah, blah, blah. And so banks and governments are the ones that have the fear. Well, they should have some fear. They have taken control and power away from their citizens for hundreds of years. It's time that we as citizens took that power back, McAfee concluded. And yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I think that to some extent he's absolutely correct. I think that the attempts to squelch cryptocurrencies so far have been relatively unsuccessful, honestly. We saw where there was a clampdown on these cryptocurrency exchanges in China. What happened? The Chinese Bitcoin and cryptocurrency traders did not stop trading. they stopped trading on monitorable exchanges. But they were doing fucking over-the-counter trades to one another. They were doing trades on Telegram. They were doing trades anywhere else they could. And there's not going to be any stop to that. That's not going to end anytime soon. And I think it's kind of foolish to expect that it will. And I think it's even more foolish to expect that some piece of paper is going to stop people from doing it. But that's my take on it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down some music. And I haven't been playing any prong. That should probably be considered like a crime, maybe. I don't know. I don't know about that. That's like, it's a little bit deep, right? Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it down. Ultimate Authority here on Coin Metal. And that was Meshuggah with Bleed. And there's certainly a lot of that going on these days. But as many as have theorized, it seems that we are heading toward a fork with the Bitcoin 2x business, or SegWit 2x or whatever, shitcoin 2x or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Supposedly we're going to entertain that fork. And like I said, nothing would make me happier than all of the miners who pledged to support SegWit 2x simply not. that would make me so happy. But not supporting SegWit either. And instead switching over to the Bitcoin Cash chain, because that is the Bitcoin blockchain, you know. Anywho, I do have quite a few articles that I want to read, but I'm not entirely certain at which order that I want to read them in. Let's start with the heavy. I think the heavy would be good. And the heavy is this progress report, and this is the FedPaymentsImprovement.org, the group that was involved in that last article that we were reading about the Federal Reserve. Well, this is the special groups report here. And this is their progress report. It's only 6 pages, so I think we can get through it pretty quickly here. Continuing on. Progress report. Strategies for improving the U.S. payment system, February 2016. Oh, Jesus Christ, this is fucking old shit. But we're going to read it anyway because I don't think we've read this yet. And it's kind of interesting that the article that we found, I didn't check the date on that. I'm pretty sure it's current, but they're referring back to a report as old as 2016. Come on now. We're almost through 2017, for Christ's sake. Continuing. In pursuit of a better payment system. In January of 2015, about the time that SegWit was starting to be forced on the network, the Federal Reserve released Strategies for Improving the U.S. Payment System, an ambitious multi-year plan that focuses on improving the speed, efficiency, and security of the U.S. payment system from end to end. Over the past year, payment stakeholders have come together in support of these desired outcomes and committed significant energy and resources to pursuing the strategies outlined in this paper. More than 1,000 individuals from every corner of the payments world are formally participating in the initiatives described in this progress report. Thousands more have sought information and provided input through meetings, online forums, and industry events. This progress report outlines the important work, completed this past year and highlights the road ahead. We invite you to engage as these initiatives progress. We are confident that these efforts will continue to generate momentum for innovation in the payments industry and result in the better, safer, faster payments for everyone. Strategy 1. Stakeholder engagement. Actively engage with stakeholders on initiatives designed to improve the U.S. payment system. Industry collaboration throughout the year has led to substantial progress on each of the identified strategies for improving the U.S. payment system. Faster payments, The Faster Payments and Secure Payments Task Forces, comprised of 500 members, were convened and made significant progress toward their objectives, including completion of the criteria for assessing the effectiveness of faster payment solutions. In addition, collaboration has been key to efforts to implement ISO 20022 for wire transfer and ACH. The Remittance Coalition, a group which encourages the adoption of electronic business-to-business payments and remittance information exchanges by small businesses, continued its cooperative work with the Federal Reserve Federal Reserve support to address barriers to electronic payment adoption. In support of this collaboration, the Federal Reserve provided many mechanisms for stakeholders to stay informed and provide input via online and in-person engagement opportunities. What's next? In 2016, we will continue to provide opportunities for stakeholders with interest to engage in all strategy efforts. To follow or join the task force, Remittance Coalition, and other initiatives, visit fedpaymentsimprovement.org. Strategy 2. Faster payments. Identify effective approaches for implementing safe, ubiquitous, faster payments. The Faster Payments Task Force was established in May of 2015 to identify effective approaches for implementing safe, ubiquitous, faster payment capabilities. In support of this goal, 3 key deliverables have been produced to date: the Faster Payments Effectiveness Criteria, the Decision-Making Framework, and the Glossary of Terms. Faster Payments Effectiveness Criteria. The effectiveness criteria were produced by the Faster Payments Task Force through an iterative process involving the Secure Payments Task Force, specialized legal and security work groups, and input from the broader stakeholder community. The effectiveness criteria are a foundational component for assessing faster payment solutions and providing guidance from the industry, end users, and others to the payment marketplace regarding aspirations for the future of faster payments. The effectiveness criteria are grouped into 6 categories: ubiquity, efficiency, safety, security, speed, legal, and governance. The effectiveness criteria will be used in 2016 by the Faster Payments Task Force to assess proposed faster payment solutions. Decision-making framework and glossary of terms. The decision-making framework is the methodology established for gaining task force approval of proposals and deliverables in this process. It ensures that decisions and work products have broad support of the task force membership, including support within and across the different stakeholder groups represented. Developed in partnership with the Secure Payments Task Force, the Glossary of Terms establishes a common lexicon for task force work products. It is an a companion document for the Faster Payments Effectiveness Criteria and will expand to support other work products for both task forces as the initiative continues. Capability Showcase. The Capability Showcase was launched in January of 2016 to create awareness of marketplace solutions that could support faster payments. It allows firms with capabilities that could support faster payments to educate the task force and other payment industry stakeholders about their solutions. The showcase fosters the opportunity for the industry participants to collaborate. What's next? In 2016, the Faster Payments Task Force will facilitate an assessment of faster payment solution proposals brought forward by Faster Payments Task Force participants. Solution proposals will be assessed against the effectiveness criteria. The assessment will be published in early 2017, along with a report of strategic issues, opportunities, and barriers to be addressed, and support implementation and adoption of faster payments in the United States. Strategy 3. Payment security. Reduce fraud risk and advance the safety, security, and resiliency of the payment system. My apologies. The Secure Payments Task Force was established in June 2015 to advise the Federal Reserve on payment security matters, coordinate with the Faster Payments Task Force, and determine payment security priorities for future action. In 2015, the task force identified payment security issues for 2016 focus, counseled the Federal Reserve on security-related research and education activities, and continued to develop the security-related faster development's effectiveness criteria. Areas of focus for future action. In response to rapidly changing technology that supports the payment process, the payment security and protection of sensitive data, the Secure Payments Task Force identified its top priorities for 2016 and beyond, including payment identity management, data protection, law and regulation coordination, and information sharing to reduce payment risk and fraud. Collaboration on the effectiveness criteria. The Secure Payments Task Force contributed to the Faster Payments Effectiveness criteria by providing input on the security components needed for faster payment solutions. To accomplish this objective, a workgroup was chartered to help develop security criteria for the Faster Payments Effectiveness criteria. What's next? A payment identity management workgroup launched in early 2016 will address the lack of universally accepted ways to establish and verify the identity of a payment systems participant. Over the course of the year, workgroups will be chartered to pursue payment security enhancements related to the other three priority areas of focus: data protection, law and regulation coordination, and information sharing for migration of payment risk and fraud. Strategy 4. Payment efficiency. Achieve greater end-to-end efficiency for domestic and cross-border payments. In support of the desire to lower end-to-end costs, enable innovative payment system services, and shift to electronic payment forms, the Federal Reserve supports industry efforts to foster the creation of technology and rules that enable more ubiquitous electronic payments. Electronic payments. The Small Business Payments Toolkit, a set of free educational resources, was created by the Remittance Coalition for Small Businesses and the bankers and advisors who service them. Additionally, the Remittance Coalition leveraged its work with banks, other service providers, and small business experts to address barriers to electronic payment adoption by businesses. It planned a proof of concept for a B2B directory, a tool that seeks to enable businesses to make more electronic payments to vendors and other payees. In addition, the Remittance Coalition explored business and governance models related to the development of a future Business Payments Directory Association, which would bring the B2B directory to production. The Remittance Coalition also collaborated with standards development organizations on standards and technical reports, including the Remittance Standards Inventory, the Inventory Technical Report, and the Balanced Transaction and Reporting Standard that address specific pain points identified by B2B practitioners. Collaboration with its vendor forum helped promote awareness of remittance standards among solution providers and corporations. What's next? The Remittance Coalition will complete its B2B directory proof of concept and finalize recommendations concerning trust, governance, business model, and the rollout and adoption strategy for the directory. Part of the technical proof of concept, a variety of electronic payment identity examples will be tested, along with a variety of use cases and information flow scenarios. The Remittance Coalition will also work to establish a Business Payments Directory Association to bring the directory to production in the future. The Remittance Coalition will also move forward with a new workgroup focused on education and the promotion of remittance standards, with intent to provide mapping guides and tips for moving from legacy to ISO 20022 standards. ISO 20022 standard. Globalization has created a growing need for choices for U.S. consumers and businesses to send and receive convenient, cost-effective, and timely cross-border payments. ISO 20022 has emerged as an enabler of a single, common language. Pardon me there. Excuse me one moment while I caffeinate. Unfortunately, caffeine isn't as instantaneous as smoking herb, but we can hope, right? And where were we here? ISO 20022 has emerged as an enabler of a single common language for global financial communications that assist organizations in responding to evolving demands, educating stakeholders, and articulating the key benefits of ISO 20022 as a robust financial messaging standard remains a priority. And you've been wholly eclipsed in this, but never mind, right? Outreach efforts included meetings and conferences to gather input on ISO 20022 implementation scope, approach, and timing for U.S. wire transfer systems, and the creation of the Federal Reserve's ISO 20022 Resource Center, a centralized repository for research and education for stakeholders. At Sibos 2015, a high-level plan and timeline to implement ISO 20022 for U.S. wire transfer systems was announced. The scope and implementation plan includes both domestic and cross-border wire payments, all components of the U.S. wire systems, and enhancements to be determined based on industry feedback. What's next? The U.S. stakeholder group will develop a detailed plan and timeline for implementation of the ISO 20022 format for wire transfers. For ACH, the U.S. stakeholder group will continue industry education and collaboration on the rationale and benefits of integration with and/or conversion to ISO 20022 for the ACH network. Strategy 5: Enhanced Federal Reserve Services. Enhanced Federal Reserve Bank payment settlement and risk management services to address identified gaps. Federal Reserve Financial Services initiated a number of activities in 2015 to support achievement of the desired outcomes of faster, safer, more efficient payments. For example, the hours of the National Settlement Service were expanded to make it more attractive as a settlement vehicle for private sector arrangements. In another effort to support enhanced payment speed, Federal Reserve Financial Services announced support for the NACH Same-Day ACH initiative, which will ensure a ubiquitous, it should be a, not an, a ubiquitous same-day capability for virtually any ACH transaction and accelerate clearing, settlement, and funds availability. To assist financial institutions in monitoring threats to the payment system, an arrangement was established with the Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center to distribute a FS-ISAC published community bank threat report to financial institutions via the Fedline network. What's next? The Federal Reserve Financial Services will finalize and release operational details pertaining to enhancements of our Fed ACH same-day service to support implementation of a universal same-day ACH, an amendment to the NACHA operating rules for faster clearing and settlement of payments, and funds availability to payment recipients. We will also continue to assess expanded reach of our Fed Global ACH payments and enhance features for subscribers. The road ahead. Join us in building a faster, safer, more efficient payment system. Visit fedpaymentsimprovement.org. Follow us on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it sounds like they've been rippled, and basically they're going to be implementing Ripple behind the scenes. That's just like a off-the-cuff analysis here, but this report was back in 2016, so yeah, like I said, they've probably gotten in bed with Ripple and so on and so forth. But like I said earlier in this episode, it was more or less designed for banks. I mean, and when you do any kind of investigation, you figure that out. I mean, shit. A lot of the white paper material. If you read the white paper material for Ripple, and then you go back and you read the white paper material for segregated witness, if you're really paying attention, you'll see some distinct corollaries there. I mean, they're very, very, very distinct. I mean, like the one benchmark that I caught on both of them was the 40,000 transactions per second. If you do any kind of study into it, and as a matter of fact, it's quoted, I believe, in the Segregated Witness white paper, that's actually Visa's peak transactions per second on their network. That's the peak documented ever on their network. And so it's more or less they're saying, hey, look, Visa, we can do what you can do on our network, except without you. So, yeah. It leads me to believe that both Segregated Witness and Ripple were either designed by one of these companies or designed by one of their proxies, and they're being kind of infiltrated into Bitcoin. But I've been seeing this accusation about Bitcoin for a long time, or cryptocurrencies in general, that there's some sort of association with Bitcoin and money laundering, and I found it completely silly. I mean, because if you are tracking people by their wallet addresses, and they're being kind of normal about their use about Bitcoin, they're using the same wallet address all the time and all that, that their transactions and their transactive histories would be relatively transparent by comparison to today's standards. And that really scares banks, but not for the reasons that a lot of people think. Okay, the way that it scares banks is that the way they do things now is like you do a transaction right now. Okay, like right this moment. There's approximately 72 hours that they have to play with that money before it has to get anywhere. Now, the transaction is logged as happening, and the recipient has logged it as happening, but the transaction itself hasn't actually settled. The money isn't really in their account yet. There's approximately 3 to 5 business days, depending on the day the transaction happened, where it's in this limbo state. And they can be doing all kinds of things with that money behind the scenes, and you have no idea about it. Well, you can't do that if the transactions are happening on an open public blockchain. A publicly viewable blockchain would show, hey, look, the money hasn't gone anywhere, or the money has gone somewhere. And it would show where the money has gone. And if it wasn't just going from person A to person B, it was being bounced around on a fucking Lightning Network payment channel, you wouldn't be able to tell because the Lightning Network payment channel isn't happening on the blockchain. And that's why I regard Lightning Networks as a return to trust, because you have to trust that the other participants or the persons maintaining the payment channel are going to be upfront about everything. Anyway, continuing on. And this one was written by Roy Kiter, Yigal, and I guess Yigal, Arnon and Co. And another one, Netanella Treisman and Yigal Arnon and Co. And this was written on October 8th, 2017, how blockchain could end instead of enable money laundering. An Israeli district court recently ruled that Israeli banks are not obligated to provide financial services to companies whose primary business is trading in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum. The court reasoned that banks should not have to assume the risks associated with providing a financial platform to these digital currency businesses when the leading Israeli authorities on the subject, namely the Central Bank, the Securities Authority, and the Anti-Money Laundering and Terror Financing Authority, themselves have been struggling to delineate clear measures to minimize them. One of the primary risks Israeli authorities and other regulators around the globe noted is the pseudo-anonymous nature of cryptocurrency holdings. Regulators view the digital token transfer method as a, quote, black box, low in accountability and virtually impossible to subject to existing anti-money laundering and anti-terror financing regulations. However, built-in features of cryptocurrencies, specifically their underlying blockchain technology, have the potential to improve, not harm, AML efforts, even surpassing mechanisms already in place today. Growing tension between the fast-growing cryptocurrency industry and AML guidelines is fueled by several factors, beyond Bitcoin's somewhat misguided reputation as a favorite of hackers and criminals, the primary of which is the structure. The current AML system was originally tailored to address existing centralized financial services systems. By default, these guidelines cannot account for a finance system based on intrinsic anonymity. Rather, AML relies on the ability to monitor and exploit the Know Your Customer process, identifying information that every financial institution is required to account for by law. The AML monitoring mechanisms currently in place attribute every transaction to a pre-identified legal entity. Data tracked in a fiat money paper trail includes A. the financial system entry point, i.e. opening a bank account, B. any transaction within the system, for example sending money from one bank account to another, or the use of SWIFT platforms. The systems then monitor the financial activity, evaluate the AML risks associated with such transactions, and follow up with any relevant notifications and reports. Use of the financial proceeds of a crime, when identified, can easily be attributed to a particular person. Critics of cryptocurrencies point to the lack of identifying information throughout digital transactions as a substantial obstacle to existing AML surveillance and enforcement capabilities. However, all of the essential regulatory and enforcement elements, identifying parties and information, a record of the transaction, and even enforcement, can exist in the cryptocurrency system. It's all a matter of adjusting perspective. First, a cryptocurrency accounts for the identity of its users, both at the beginning and end of transactions, through digital wallets. Tokens are stored in electronic wallets instead of bank accounts. Only the wallet owner has access to his or her wallet. The owner can send and accept tokens from one wallet to another by providing the identification code of their wallet to the other side of the transaction. The code itself acts as a key, eliminating the need for names or other types of identification. So while the transaction itself is seemingly anonymous, in most countries today, you need to undergo the process of KYC in order to open a new digital wallet. No, you don't. Just for one example, Coinbase's legal disclaimer notes that it may check account information associated with your linked bank account among other possible background checks. And the 2017 Global Cryptocurrency Benchmarking Study asserts that all wallets converting national currency to cryptocurrency perform such checks. So, by virtue of owning a digital wallet, even without necessarily using it, your anonymity is compromised. Not necessarily. Nevertheless, in some places you can still open a wallet without going through a proper identification process, which may allow, quote, dirty money into the system. Quote, dirty money and other issues like CoinJoin and smurfing make it difficult to attribute a financial transaction to a specific legal entity, presenting a problem still in need of a solution. Not really. One possibility is the expansion of KYC as a worldwide prerequisite to issuing global e-wallets. Suck a dick! Thereby prohibiting token transfer to a wallet that does not meet that standard. You can go fuck yourself. Considering there is only one type of entry and exit point, unlike the multiple exchange platforms available in the fiat system, cryptocurrency could conceivably enhance identity tracking capability. No, it can't. This kind of solution would require consensus by key players in the industry, which you're not going to get, and complementary regulation. Suck a dick. The recent upswing in new KYC requirements for new and existing wallet owners internationally suggests such standardization could be crucial for ensuring the proper functioning of the growing future cryptocurrency industry. Additionally, thanks to blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies inherently have the potential to reduce AML risks when compared with fiat currencies. The blockchain is an online public ledger, where each transaction is supervised, validated, and recorded as a complete transaction history. Public ledger reviewers and crypto miners are immediately notified of any transfer from one holder to another. No, they're not. Furthermore, unlike counterfeit hard currency, which governments spend significant sums trying to combat, cryptocurrencies are almost impossible to forge. No, they're not, as they each carry their own unique characteristics, which are verified from end to end by miners. Miners being the computers on which individuals and mining groups are running the blockchain. Without verification of all transaction phases, including the departure wallet, the destination wallet, and the currency type and amount, the transaction is blocked instantaneously without any human supervision. In this sense, the digital trail could better serve AML regulations than the existing fiat paper trail. The structure of blockchain is not the only characteristic of the cryptocurrency system that benefits AML efforts. Crypto miners, which act as de facto enforcement, are integral to the system as well. Once a validation is announced to the network, miners check the math, and the block is added to the ledger only when the required number of miners has verified the transaction. Similarly, the blockchain protocol could be revised to limit transaction to KYC verified wallets only. No, it can't. All transactions could be traced back to an identified e-wallet. Moreover, AML risk analysis, and alert and report generating mechanisms could be integrated within the crypto system instead of monitoring only the entry and exit points. As cryptocurrencies gain mainstream public attention and more individuals put their skin in the game, addressing AML challenges has become crucial. At the core of the crypto system, blockchain technology's inherent characteristics offer a platform to address, if not overcome, these challenges altogether. Evidently, there will be a price associated with such a move in the form of higher transaction costs and less anonymity. But it's a price worth paying for the purpose of allowing cryptocurrencies to carry onward and change the face of money as we know it. This guy is fucking smoking crack. With the cost of global AML measures currently estimated over $10 billion annually, the Israeli authorities, as well as law and policymakers worldwide, would be prudent to look before they leap, ensuring their good intentions to protect financial institutions and citizens don't end up blocking a technology that could provide a return on investment that far surpasses the price of transitional uncertainty. Dude, this guy smokes fucking crack. I mean, smokes fucking crack. And I'll tell you why. If I found out that I were participating in a cryptocurrency network that was banning certain people from receiving cryptocurrency transactions because they aren't registered in some way, shape, or form, or their wallet isn't registered in some way, shape, or form with a federal government or a bank or somebody like that, I would cease using it. I would get my monetary value out of that currency and into a currency that didn't do that. And then that currency would go up in value. And these guys would be asked out again. I don't think they understand. This is one of those games that is not going to end. The whole digital IP or intellectual property, that hasn't been resolved yet. We're still stealing whatever the fuck we want. We're still viewing whatever the fuck we want. And these people that are trying to stop us are still flogging themselves, trying to figure out ways to stop us. And they haven't managed that yet. They haven't managed it because they are not meeting our needs. And where they are failing to meet our needs, we are circumventing them. It's like, what value is a movie if I can't watch it? And if I can't afford to watch it, then it's of zero value to me, right? But what if I could steal it? What if I could watch it without paying for it? Well, then it has value to me. And it's this relationship between value and pain in the ass that these authoritarians just have not figured out yet. I mean, we've been dealing with this in stride for the last, 25 years at least, if not longer. I mean, shit, as a matter of fact, I remember back in the days when VCRs were your primary non-TV medium. And I remember back in the day when we would take a tape that it had the tab broken off so you couldn't record, or the tabs that made it so you couldn't record over a tape, and we would put a piece of tape over it so that the thing that checks to see whether or not the tape is recordable reads the tape as recordable and allows us to record over it. I mean, that was shit. That was 1980s. Or better yet, taking two VCRs and making copies of other, like you go to, Blockbuster or somebody like that, and you rent a videotape. You take it home, you play it on one, you record it on the other. Now you're video dubbing. And of course, it didn't take people too long to figure out that they could make their own movies or splice their own material into copyrighted material. And so, this is not new, and it's not ended yet, and it's not going to end. And they keep trying to draw it to some sort of conclusion, and every kind of way that they develop that blocks us, we figure out a new and faster way to get around them again. And I mean, at this point, it should be kind of easy to figure out that the cheapest way out of it is to not try and prohibit it. Because by trying to inhibit its access, all you do is create a premium for doing it. And that might not be... That might be not be too significant. It might be a premium that people are willing to endure just to tell you to fuck off. And I personally, I think that's the debate that's going to continue. It's not going to end. It's not going to end anytime soon. It's not. Cryptocurrencies aren't the beginning of it, and they're not the end of it either. And this idea that documenting everything on the blockchain is somehow going to eliminate money laundering. You know what money laundering is? money laundering is non-tax transactions, basically. It's like money that's gone from one place to another without passing through some tax point. You know, some gateway where they were allowed to get their cut. That's all it is. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I've been wanting to play some Helmet today. A little bit of Unsung here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Face Value. And yeah, we're rounding out the end of this episode here. We've got about 7 minutes left and a last dance to fit in there. So, but a summation for the evening. I think that the ultimate driver behind cryptocurrencies is still you. You're the thing that gives everything value here. You know, you're the one that decides which cryptocurrencies you want to put any monetary value in. You're the one that decides which ones you want to which currency you want to transact in. You're it. And they keep trying to assemble these models like they're somehow going to keep you from choosing which currency that you want to get into. And really, if you were transacting in a cryptocurrency where all of a sudden you're experiencing all kinds of regulatory scrutiny and all of a sudden your transaction fees are shooting up through the roof because the cryptocurrency and all the miners that are associated with it are suddenly having to clear a whole bunch of regulatory burden that they previously did not experience, would you stay on that network? I know I wouldn't. I would be looking for a coin that doesn't participate in this fucking regulatory framework, and I'd transition my currency, my monetary value into that currency instead. I mean, it's because this is possible. It is possible now to do exactly what I'm talking about. Because of it, we're always going to stay in a position where we can get out of this whole lockdown bullshit, you know, where we can move our funds around. We can move our funds whenever we want to. But again, I don't think that the promises that these people are feeding themselves, or somebody is feeding them, about constraining the entire global economy into their monetary systems, it's fucking stupid. Completely fucking ludicrous. I mean, we see a major hack every fucking week. Okay? These regulatory bodies that are supposedly going to keep us secure and shit, they can't keep the information that they're collecting now secure. How is their participation, or how is their further participation in cryptocurrencies going to make them any safer? As a matter of fact, I think it'd be exactly the opposite. That the more that they are involved, the less safe we all are. And that's just my take on the whole thing. Anyway, I'd like to round it out, and I'd like to thank you all very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support, and I feel it a lot on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere. And I gotta say, I don't think I've had as many listeners as I did on Friday, pretty much like ever. It's pretty cool to be able to get Verge Dev on here and get him explaining things for people. I've been listening to a lot of radio silence from his end for a while now. Anyway, he will be back on this show at some time in the future. I can guarantee that. Anyway, let's go ahead and close it out with a song by System of a Down, Bounce. It's nice and short, and it's to the theme of leaving, right? And we will be back again Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. I want you to do your homework. I want you to watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else will do it for you. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.